Hey everyone, it's Ellie here, and in this video we are talking about the Geography A-Level Advanced Information for the June 2022 exams, which was released in February 2022. So I've got a link to the document below if you have a look in the description, and also a new document that has the full specification but greyed out parts. And I'm going to tell you why this is useful in a bit and how you can use it to revise. So I'm sure your teachers have told you, but the advanced information documents have been released for all subjects, and they are there basically to focus your revision. So in this video, I'm going to first go over the important information, which is at the start of the advanced information. And then at the second part, I'm going to talk through what the exam will look like. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the skills section, because I feel that that is something which you might miss out, and I think it's quite important. And then part 4, I'm going to go through the key parts of the specification, what is included in the list, what is not included in the list, but maybe things to keep an eye out for. So make sure you listen to part 1 to 3, and then you can skip, and I'll put all the timestamps so you can see them when you go through. What might be quite useful at the moment is to print out the document I've given and maybe annotate around it with things that I'm saying or just ideas that you have when you're revising it. And I'm also going to suggest that you rag them as well. So part 1. Before we get on to what is included and what's not included in the list, it's important to look at the information AQA have said first. And so I've got this document up, which is what they've said. I'm just going to highlight a few things as I go through. So the first kind of key important thing is that it says the advanced information mainly identifies the required AO1 content. So like the knowledge content that's going to be assessed, and the skills as well. However, they also say the information contained in this document does not identify all possible opportunities where students may apply their knowledge and understanding, so AO2. This means that student responses to individual questions may draw upon other areas of the specification where relevant, and credit will be given for this where appropriate. So what this means is that this document is a useful tool to focus your revision, but you can draw on other parts of the spec that you've learned. And also you will be given marks for this. It also does say that when we're focusing on revision, that the aims of the specification, it means the general specification, stipulate that students are encouraged to apply geographical knowledge, understanding, skills and approaches in a rigorous way when it comes to geographical questions and issues. And this is important when accessing higher levels in the mark scheme. So basically, if you are aiming for the highest grades, you should be thinking about links between topics. In fact, everybody should be thinking about links between topics. Therefore, what they're trying to say is, even if it's not exactly on the list, like it might be relevant for it. So all in all, in order to get the highest grades, examiners are still wanting you to write and think like a geographer. So don't see the list that they've got as just exhaustive. It also says that it is good practice that many areas of specification of the content are taught through required case studies. And therefore, it is essential that students include case studies as part of their knowledge of their revision in all units. So in some areas, we'll see they haven't got the case study, like the specific case studies. In fact, they're kind of greyed out or not included in the list here. However, if you have used those case studies for understanding different areas of the specification, please make sure you're still using them. So they're going to be useful to refer to. And remember, you also get marks for knowledge and understanding of places and environment. So including examples can support you gaining higher marks. And finally, we'll go through, this is about data, we'll go through that in a bit as well. It says, questions will be included in the assessment that draw from links made within units and across units. And so students should still consider this as part of their revision. So what this means is that you will still get asked a synoptic question. For example, there might be a question that links changing places and globalization. I've seen that before, or globalization hazards. So make sure you're kind of seeing the links between different parts of the topic. Okay, so part 2, what will the exam look like? So on AQA's website, they say that component 70371, so physical geography, and then 70372 human geography will be assessed as normal. So quite simply, it is the same 2-hour 30 exam. The same paper assessment styles, and that's what I love about AQA, is that at least you know exactly what you're going to get with the marks, etc. So in the first sections, A and B for each paper, you get a 4, 6, 6 and 20 mark question. So for paper 1, that's water and carbon cycles, then hot deserts or coasts or glacial systems. And in paper 2, that's global systems and global governance or changing places. So the marks will go as following. First of all, you get a 4-mark question, which is AO1. Then you get a 6-mark analyse question. This is a skills mark question where you get given geographical data and you have to analyse it. Then you get a 6-mark assess question, usually assess, it can be evaluate, where you get given some geographical data and then you need to use that to answer a question. And then you get a 20-mark question, and if you want help on this, I'll put a link to the video that I've done on it. Then in section C, so it is either hazards or ecosystems under stress for physical paper, or contemporary urban environments, population and the environment, or resource security. It's a slightly longer section and it's 48 marks, not 36. So in this section, it's 4, 6, 9, 9, 20. So you have 4 marks AO1, 6 marks AO3 analyse. Then the geographical data question is actually turned into a 9-mark question, the kind of like assess question. And then you get another 9-mark question, which is almost like a mini 20-mark question. And then you get followed by a final 20-mark question. So that's what the exam will look like. Very similar. Use the ones previously. I think there's even the November 2020 one online. So go onto the AQA website and find them online. You can use them to revise. Now, part 3, on to the skills section. So on to part 3, the skills section. So at the front, they say this: it is important to remind students of the range of ways that data can be presented when looking at geographical skills, i.e. different types of bar charts and line graphs, and they are assessed in some questions, such as the 6-mark AO3. And we've already talked about those for a second. At the end of each topic list, of their list, they have these little parts down here. I'll get to this in a second. So just go to the bottom of my paper 1 section, which looks quite long. They have this little section here, and then they have the same for paper 2, which is down here, which I have included. And on first glance, they look quite similar. In fact, you might mistake them for being the exact same list. And they also look very similar to the specification. However, if we have a look at what's on the specification, which is part of this document, I have greyed out the parts that aren't included on their list. So, of course, you can see that the core skills you need to be able to interpret a variety of illustrative material and visual material is on the list. That's what we would expect. We've got lots of 6-mark questions coming up. However, going down, you can see that there's a little difference between the lists. So, of course, all of this, there's nothing specifically on questionnaires, atlas maps. However, this part down here only comes up on the paper 1 list. So map showing spatial patterns, choropleth, isoliner and dot maps. And this one here, scatter graphs and the use of best fit, only appears on the paper 2 list. So I definitely would familiarise yourself with all of these maps, but particularly spatial patterns, choropleth and also scatter graphs. And just a thing to remember for scatter graphs is that for scatter graphs, remember you can have a positive, a negative, strong or weak correlation, and that's different from a line graph. You can't have them for line graphs. So think about kind of the relationship in terms of your scatter graphs. So I would just practice with as many exam practice like questions you can find online and have a look at all of these. But I think that's just really make sure that you can understand choropleth, isoliner and dot maps and scatter graphs as well, because I don't know why you would omit one from the list and include it in the other one if that wasn't important. So that's the important thing to check out for skills, which I think that if you might have missed before. Another tip for practicing these is, apart from past practice papers, is if you go onto The Economist or have a look at the back of The Economist, I think I made a video on this, that you can look at their data sets, and then you can practice analysing different illustrative and visual material. And there's just so many different graphs that you can use, and don't worry if it's not specifically geography related, it's still a useful skill to be able to investigate graphs and interpret them. So part 4, now onto the content. So here below is the specification from AQA. The exact same ones, you can find it online. I'll put the link down here. However, it just has some greyed out parts on what is omitted from the list. So I think it's useful to look at them as, remember what they said at the beginning, is that you can draw upon other areas of the specification to get marks when appropriate. And so it's useful to see what is and what's not on the list. And then what I would do now is, if you haven't already, print it out, and then I would rag. So red, don't know, you need to revise. Amber, okay-ish. And green, you're confident on. And I would rag it as you go through. I've got an example here. When you go through and be like, oh yeah, I'm good at that. Green or red. Okay, so definitely do that for the little sections. So 3.1.1, water and carbon cycles. So the first thing we can see when we're looking at what is and what's not on the list, so greyed out, remember, not on the list. The water cycle is not on the list. The carbon cycle mainly is on the list. However, in order to understand this, water, carbon, climate and life on Earth, which is on the list, you need to know about the role of the water and carbon stores and cycles in supporting life on Earth with a particular reference to climate. So, and the relationship between the water cycle and carbon cycle in the atmosphere. So don't completely ignore the water cycle. You will still need it you will still need it for understanding other parts of the spec. Also, the case studies are not on the list, so they've been taken out. However, remember what we said at the beginning, you still will need examples of case study to help illustrate points. So maybe just keep an eye on just all case studies through the specification. Right. If you need to move on, use the timestamps. Let's go on to hot deserts, systems and landscapes. So a few key parts out of the list. So key parts include, which are on the list, deserts and natural systems, pretty much all there. Systems and processes, and desertification. And the case study is a local scale of a landscape where desertification has occurred to illustrate and analyse key themes or desertification, causes, impacts, implications for sustainable development, evaluation of human responses, resilience, mitigation and adaptation. So if that's on the list with desertification, I would definitely make sure you revise that, because as a hint it might come up. I'm not sure. These are just what I may be thinking from looking at the list that has been given. However, I do think it's interesting when they take out this. So for example, in arid landscape developments in contrasting settings, they only have origin and development of landforms in mid and low latitude deserts of ventifacts. So that makes me think potentially this could come up in some way, either or a 4 or 6 mark question. So if anything is kind of slightly excluded from the list and one thing is included, just use that quite carefully to have a look at. On to coastal systems and landscapes. So definitely look carefully, as they seem to have taken out bits from all over the place. So I would definitely go through it carefully and red, amber, green it on what you're confident on. So for example, low energy coasts are on the spec, as are weathering, erosion, transportation, etc., but mass movement isn't. Also, for example, salt marshes are in the spec, and that potentially might go with your low energy coasts up here. And also forwards are on the spec, but the other associated landforms aren't on the spec. So maybe that could be a 4 or 6 mark question, I'm not sure. Remember, they might not include everything on here, but I think it's just interesting when they do include some bits and omit other parts of the spec for the list. If we have a look down here, coastal management is on the spec. However, the coastal management case study or sustainable management is not on the spec. So maybe, I'm not sure if it will be a 20-mark question, maybe not if they've taken it out. However, this case study is on the spec of coastal landscapes beyond the UK to illustrate and analyse how it presents risks and opportunities for human occupation, development, and evaluate human responses of resilience, mitigation, and adaptation. So remember what I said at the beginning with case studies is even if you have learnt case studies as part of the spec, they can still be used to illustrate points. Just to have a look, but maybe there might not be. It also has climate change up here and the impacts, which links to the other part of this, the case study. So, but you can see here it's kind of all dotted around the place. So just have a look carefully and think about 20-mark questions that can link to the parts that are included in it. On to glaciers. Okay, so here, like coast, make sure you rag it carefully. Some key things which are not on the list, for example, glaciers and natural systems and the nature and distribution of cold environments, and some of systems and processes. However, these parts here, inputs, outputs, energy, characteristics, they might help you interpret the rest of the spec. And so I would say make sure you just go over the key processes of all physical geography. And then here they have, for example, there's a lot included on glacial landscapes development. Here some parts aren't included, but for example, corries, arêtes and glacial troughs are included. So maybe make sure you know them in detail as well. And then there is here human impacts on cold environments. This is included, as is the spec, which says a contrasting glaciated landscape from beyond the UK to illustrate and analyse how it presents challenges and opportunities for human occupation and development and evaluate human responses of resilient mitigation and adaptation. So maybe that links to part of the spec that's included above, and the part that's not on it is your kind of glacial processes and the landscape outcomes. So maybe there might be a bit more to do with human impacts, mitigation, adaptation. You to have a look for when you do it. And don't forget, with case studies, all case studies can be useful. You can get marks given for them as well. So don't just omit all case studies. On to hazard. Here, the concept of hazard in a geographical context has been taken off, so it's not on the list, but watch out because this part down here, characteristic human responses, fatalism, prediction, adjustment and adaptation, is included in the wildfires section, and I've included it down here, so it's a different part of that. So this is included for the wildfires section, just in case you've missed it. It is on the spec under the advanced information under wildfires. And then here we have lots of plate tectonics is out, except destructive, constructive and conservative plate margins, characteristic processes, seismicity and volcanicity. So definitely make sure you know that. 4 or 6 mark question could be relevant. And then on the list, lots of other, both case studies are taken out. But remember what I said about case studies. They have said that you need case studies to be able to understand the course and to be able to get high marks, and it links to the specification, it links to the mark scheme part of knowledge and understanding of places and environment. So make sure for what you are studying, you do have case study knowledge. And then as you can see in the fires and nature part, I have included the part which they've had on the advanced specification information. Finally, for the last part of paper 1, on to ecosystems under stress. So a few bits are taken out, so don't forget to rag the sheet, red, amber, green, on how confident you are. One thing that is included is ecosystems and processes, and this is interesting. So they have concepts of succession, climatic climax, and then if you go down, you can see here the only part of ecosystems in the British Isles over time is characteristics of the climatic climax, temperate deciduous woodland biome. So that makes me think that there might be a question on that because they've picked out those 2 parts of the spec. So make sure you're looking at that. I don't know what kind of length questions they would be, but check that out. Maybe 4 or 6. As you can see here, that biomes is all in there. Marine ecosystems is out of here. And then local ecosystems is all in there. And then as you can see, your case study is of an ecosystem at a local scale to illustrate and analyse key themes set out above. So maybe that's quite important to think about, and that this is omitted from it, it's not on the list. However, remember, case studies are important as you go throughout for all of them. This is the skills which I talked about before, so that was in section 3 of the video, so check that out, but this is what I said was key for this part of the unit as well as all of this as well. Don't miss that out. So on to paper 2. A few things will be taken out from each section of global systems, global governance. And I suppose the biggest thing is that Antarctica is not on the list, which, I don't know, good, bad. You're right. So it's pretty much taken out this whole global commons section. However, fishing and whaling is on the list. So maybe this might be a 4 or 6 mark question. Sometimes they give data and say, explain or assess the threat of fishing. So maybe just make sure you definitely know about fishing and whaling. And for globalization, I have got a revision video to have a look at as well. So definitely check that one out as well. A few things which are on the list to have a look at. So dimensions is off, factors of globalization is on. And then here under global systems, there's quite a lot on issues associated with interdependence or globalization critique. So here we have unequal flows of people, money, ideas, promoting stability, growth and development, but also causing inequalities, conflicts, injustices. And then as you go down here, there's also issues associated with attempts of global governance. Again, how you can promote growth, stability, but exacerbate inequalities and injustices. And also included is the globalization critique. So that makes me think that there might be a question on growth, development, integration, stability versus the cost of globalization, of inequalities, injustices, conflict, and environmental impact. And they have had some 20-mark questions on that before, so you can probably practice it. But it's interesting that they've included all of them. It could be potentially quite a synoptic question, which includes lots of part of the globalization specification, so check that one out. And then a few things otherwise for global systems and global governance is check out this section here, as there's some bits which are on it and not on it. And the one thing which is not on the list is a detailed reference to a specified TNC. So I think it's unlikely that your 20 mark is going to be on TNCs or on obviously Antarctica. So it is maybe to be with injustices or global governance or something like that. But do definitely have a look as you go through and carefully rag it. Changing places. So, changing places is super synoptic. So you'll probably be able to draw on many aspects of the specifications. So although parts have been taken out, I feel it's quite hard to say. I feel like you might be able to use all of what you've been studying for it. So I would say definitely revise it. And again, I've got a video, I'll put a link to it so you can see it. So if we just have a look at the beginning, near and far is taken off, experience and places and media places are in, endogenous factors are in, exogenous factors are out. So check those for 4 marks, make sure you can explain them with an example. It could be a short mark question. This is mainly taken out, well, not on the list. Some of it is included. It could be shorter mark questions, and this part is untouched, meaning and representation. And they have had 20 markers on these before. So for example, they've had a 20 marker on how external agencies can create specific place meanings. So what I almost would do with this is for each bullet point, think of a 20 marker. I think this has almost been a 20 marker as well. So think how you could answer a 20 marker on each one of those as a tip. And then not surprisingly, both case studies are still in. Sometimes they give you options whether to include the local place study or a contrasting place study. Sometimes they just say one, so make sure you know it in detail. Both of them in detail, don't just pick one. as I know them inside out and how they link to all parts of the spec, because you can use them to probably answer any question and link it to it, particularly with meaning and representation. On next to urbanisation, contemporary urban environments. So don't forget to rag your specification, red, amber, green, what you're confident on. So interestingly, quite a lot of urbanisation is out, apart from urban resurgence and urban policy and regeneration. And I think that's been a 20-mark question before. So check you can answer 20-mark questions on all of this, because I feel that quite a lot of urban has been taken out. Like, this is not included case studies, sustainable urban development, urban drainage is out, urban climate, not lots of it. And so just check 20-mark questions can come from any part of the spec. Most of urban forms is in. Social and economic issues associated with urbanisation is untouched. So there could be a big question, longer question on this or something. Urban climate, thunderstorms is the only part which is in. So that makes you think it could be a 4 or 6 mark question potentially, not sure. And then urban waste is mostly in for you to have a look at. And just to remind you, although the case studies aren't in there, you do need to know case studies for each one. I know I keep saying this, but don't just think you don't need to put them in there, because you get marks for knowledge and understanding of places and environments. Next, on to population and the environment. So much of the start of the spec is all in. So introduction, environment and population. And then, interestingly, with the relationship with key physical environment variables, only climate is in. So, and then here we've got 2 major climatic types to exemplify the relationships, but not the key zonal soils. So that makes me think that it's mainly focused on climate with that. That could be any mark question length, but definitely focus on that one there. Environmental health and well-being is all in. And your case study, which is included, is a specified local area to illustrate and analyse the relationship between place and health related to physical environment and socioeconomic character. So that would link to your local area between place and health. And so this kind of links to this part here. So you can see that is potentially something really to focus on as well. If we go down, population change, only international migration refugees is included for 6 mark question, not sure. And then principles of population ecology, perspectives of population growth, only Malthusian is included for that. So 4 6 mark question, not sure, but that's something to watch out for. Global population futures is also all in. And just remember, reminding for you for each part of the spec, even though it doesn't say this case study might be in, make sure you have place and understanding of different locations and environments as you get awarded marks for case studies. And finally, the last section, resource security. I teach someone, I feel this is a bit bitty, this one, but make sure you have printed it out and you red, amber, green it at the start. So first of all, you have, for example, a concept of resource, stock resource evaluation, so indicated reserves and inferred resources, not possible and not measured. So maybe you might get a 4 mark saying define the difference between indicated and inferred. Not sure, but it's interesting that they've included those and not included the others. Natural resource issues, so all minerals is out and all minerals is out here on geopolitics. So you need to know production, consumption of movements of energy and water, availability and demand, and geopolitics on energy. And if you have a look down to the energy section, there is also energy supplies in a globalizing world, competing national interests. So this makes me think there might be a question on geopolitics of energy, and make sure you're reading what's in the news, because obviously lots are changing with like oil prices and things like that. So gas prices. So check out the news, make sure you're including the most relevant information. Key parts for water security is that you do get asked on the relationship of water supply with physical geography, which is not included for the rest of the questions. And then this is the big thing, which I think will maybe show if there's going to be a 20-mark question on it, is sustainability issues associated with water management, virtual water trade, conservation, groundwater management. Sustainability issues comes up in all three, and it's something that they've kept in. You have here sustainability issues associated with energy production, and for minerals, you have sustainability issues associated with ore extraction. So sometimes they even give options of minerals, water, or energy, and say for one of them, assess the sustainability issues. But it's interesting that that has come up for all of them. It makes me think it'll be a larger mark question. Remember, you get 9 marks as well in this topic. For water, they've taken out the major water supply scheme. And also don't forget these strategies to increase water supply and strategies to manage water consumption. Do you kind of go into sustainability issues? So just watch out for them. And water conflicts is not included. Now, energy, so not the physical geography part, but most of it is included. And remember, sustainability issues still could link with these two up here. So do make sure you're not just completely not revising them. And then mineral security, the only part which is out is physical geography, so it's mostly in there. Both ones for resource futures, and then case studies, both are taken out, but I've said this for every single topic. Don't forget to include your case studies, because you get marks for knowledge and understanding of places and environments. And they said at the beginning, make sure you include case studies so you can expand on your points and give evidence of them. So that is it. I'm not going to talk for any longer. If you've got any questions, put them below. Hopefully this has been helpful. Don't forget to go on the AQA website. All the information is there. And yeah, I don't know why I need to say any more than that. Have a nice day. Good luck. Hopefully revision is going well. And yeah, massive good luck for the exams.